Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and our fine people of the world, to Winter Hosting Grand Slam Tournament. And we are back for the quarterfinals. I can remember the round name, quarterfinals, Mappool Showcase. I am Tatua. I shall be commentating this showcase with none other than Sparky. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. If you know me, on top of the world right now, going into this Mappool showcase for very personal reasons. Usually, going into quarterfinals Mappool showcases, don't need to pay as much attention because I'm usually out by this round, but actually need to lock in because based on what we've been seeing so far, this is going to be a bit more of a spike in terms of overall difficulty. And again, privy to everybody, or just full disclosure to everybody, I don't know what the maps are as we get on into this. There's gonna be blind reactions. Just got the player POV for this. I'll defer to Patiraj in terms of the map pool knowledge here.
Yes, absolutely. I have all the knowledge, you have none. And so speaking of knowledge, we are adding an extra rice map, and we are adding an extra LN map. So there's gonna be 7 rice maps and 4 LN maps. Still 3 hybrids, and as usual, the tiebreaker. So we are going to go in order in this showcase.
Alrighty, looking forward to it. For those keeping along or keeping score at home, that means we are now officially in a best of 11 format. First player to 6 points will be winning the match. So those of you that have gotten used to the 5-point victory, please stick around for that extra map. We don't want people leaving as soon as the 5th map is over, or that 5th point is secured, because that'd be very awkward trying to get you back into the lobby.
Alright, I think we are about ready to go into the showcase itself, starting with rice number 1.
Alrighty, and it's Tropical April.
Yeah, that's an old IC World Classic here, and that's gonna be at 1.1. And that's going to be clocking in at 200 BPM, so we are starting to break the 200 BPM barrier.
Yeah, I imagine this is going to be a bit of a prototypical jump stream Rice 1 pick. I feel like the latent PTSD of AO Infinity has passed. Now some new picks to kind of develop a new vice over, and this one, as you mentioned, picking up the BPM just a little bit, but the patterning still relatively the same in terms of what's being demanded. Just straightforward jump stream. Once you get in, you're not stopping for long stretches of time here.
Yeah, honestly, this classic aged pretty well, I dare say. And it doesn't let a lot. It doesn't leave a lot of breakpoints. It doesn't leave a lot of breaks in this. Like just here maybe. But yeah, it does still keep you on your toes with some elements here and there, like Stepmania holds, as we like to call them.
Yeah, just adding that little wrinkle of the release elements could potentially cause some 200s here and there, but thankfully not too intrusive on the run overall. They're not like a determining factor. I think that's really just going to be coming down to the consistency of the players. As we make our way into this outro, we start to see some hand patterns coming through, some 3-note chord impacts to kind of add a little bit of an element here. The impacts making a bit of a reprisal as well. A final little flourish, and once you're in, immediately thereafter you are out, and that will do it for Rice 1 here.
Yeah, there are some bursts that you have to look out for, and those can cause some 200s here and there, and some chokes maybe here and there also. And you can see that the quarterfinals, Mappool does not joke around. It is really starting to get physical. And speaking of tricky and physical, there's gonna be Rise 2, and Rise 2 is gonna be a little bit special. So this is gonna be this cracked, and
Oh,
this comes originally from How to Play a Land, but was edited by Logan.
I love the homage. How to play Rice. Same background as well. Oh no. Oh
Yeah.
man.
So
This was
yeah, some players might be familiar with the LN. This is not the LN. This is Rise still, and Rise 2 is not gonna be as speed oriented as you may think. This is fairly physical, but also very much more, I guess, mixed Rise oriented than rather than speed oriented.
yeah, some repeating patterns to get started here. Kind of some motifs being developed, some two-handed drill patterns as well. Just overall, just a mix of different stylistic choices to open this map off, and you're in for the long haul in comparison to Rice 1 already gonna push the envelope of that 3-minute mark, just shy of it. Lower OD, mercifully. I wouldn't want to be sharpshooting all those grace notes, all those flams. You get some syncopated rhythms as well as we continue on here.
Yeah, the rhythm complexity here, especially in this transition, is kind of awkward to get at first, but once you get used to it, I guess I think you can I think you can get used to it pretty easily. And OD 7.5 does leave you a little bit of room to kind of get used to it, used to the transition that is. Going back to that intro, however, like the repetitiveness of that intro does leave some mind blockiness to be put on the table. And here we've got this really intense part that is kind of going left and right, and that is pretty physically demanding. And that start and stop is especially gonna be kind of straining in terms of focus, because like you cannot. And especially like here, it slows down, and you really have to focus on the individual notes and snaps themselves. And here,
Yeah,
like this outro is also very abrasive, and especially the ending is gonna be really chokeable. Here, it's a little bit of a break. I call it a break because I'm better on this type of patterning, but what comes after is some people might trip up on it, and some points might actually be played on that ending.
yeah, last couple of outro bursts, very hand-centric, very rigid in terms of those syncopated patterns, as you mentioned. Very awkward to read through into the build-up, and right at the end, just closing it out. It feels like a map that once you play it, or once you get into it for practice, feels longer than it actually is.
Yeah, it is very. I guess it is very progressive in terms of difficulty. It kind of starts. It kind of starts tame, but also kind of mind blockable. As any From's map would be, but
Mhm.
it really ends on a bang.
For sure. So moving on here to Rice 3.
And this is going to be Loretta, mapped by none other by Valedict. And Loretta is a little bit of a hidden classic. I did not know this map prior to being introduced it as a pooler and as a playtester. And honestly, like this is really chill, and this is really I guess really flowy. And Rise 3 is gonna be kind of replacing your usual Rise 2 dumpy map. And here you can see like some of the speedy transitions here and there, but you gotta still take care of the mini jack chord jack transitions here and there, but it really flows well.
I always like to describe these types of charts. I think dump has been like the colloquial term, but very interpretive in terms of extrapolating where these notes are being placed in comparison to what's going on in the music. I think I've said it in Mappool showcases past, where if you're one of those types of players that needs like a consistent downbeat or just a consistent musical equivalent to what you are playing, this is the type of map that you tend to shy away from, because of the fact that, as you mentioned, it's so free flowing. There's a lot of grace notes, a lot of flam rhythms that aren't exact one-to-one replicated in the music, and it'll be interesting to see which players gravitate towards this style of pick in comparison to something like Vizcracked, and seeing if this catches any potential bans, because this is definitely approaching that level of polarizing where it might just be a bit too much of a gamble to keep around against your opponent.
Yeah, you bring up something very interesting about this crack being more structured compared to Loretta, which is very free flowing and almost interpretative in terms of mapping. Like this cracked, you can pretty much put one note to one sound. Like here, it's a little bit more ambiguous.
Yes, that's the perfect word to put it. The ambiguous snaps left and right. It's definitely an acquired skill set to be able to accurately hit some of these more intense patterns, because it's not like you're playing like massive like anchor jacks left and right. They do get implied every so often in some of these pattern structures, but it overall just the tendency I'm expecting is maybe players will be able to FC their way through this, but getting those high accuracy scores that a lot of players strive for might be what separates getting the point and getting broken on the point for this one.
Yeah, and you might notice like the map went on and not a lot of break was had in there, and the map is also like 3 minutes and 9 seconds long, which is nothing to scoff at. Like it's pretty substantially long. I want to move myself like this. Yes, I'm streaming this, by the way.
The live edits coming through here give the players the courtesy of being able to read what the map is if they can't look directly down at the metadata. Very much appreciated. Looks a little nicer as well. But we can move on to our next Rice pick. It is going to be Rice 4. And a
Yes.
classic.
Yeah, some people might know this from MBS3 or some
MBS.
other tournament. Yeah, and also from the Loved catalog. But I think it was featured. Yes, this map is in the Loved state.
Gotta love that loud banner reminding people it is loved. Yeah, this is bringing back memories. We are once again in the realm of MBS picks making their way into this map pool. I want to say the MBS map was the base rate. We are now using 1.1 in this instance. I could be wrong. Somebody can fact check me. I mean, you yourself being the host of that tournament could probably fact check me right here and there. But going into it, this is a very broken jump stream-esque pick. There are some kind of, I mean, we go from Polyphia. You kind of know what you're getting with that artist, with this freeform guitar playing, very much reflected in the pattern structures here. Very not straightforward 1/4, but this is definitely, I'd say, more comfortable to read once the actual rain of notes begins coming down. But the 1.1 uprate might be a bit too much to ask for some players.
Yeah, like 1.1 really gets physical, and this Rice 4, surprisingly enough, might be the one that is closest to a true speed pick for people who are inclined to pick towards physicality and speed.
Yeah, we haven't really had like a quote unquote standard speed pick where it's just like we have the jump stream, which is 1/4, and then speed is single note 1/8 potentially, or like at a higher BPM on 1/4 structure. This one might satiate that itch some players have been wanting, because when you do get into those big chorus sections, the key eye sections of this map, that's when you're just free flowing, letting the fingers go for long stretches of time. But you do have these interludes as well to kind of cleanse the palate before diving back into it. So you're not straining for the entirety of the run length of the chart.
Yeah, I want to say that like the first half of the map is lighter in physicality and in parroting than the later half. Like the later half really puts you into some parroting that is very much chokeable. So some of the matchups might actually play into the second half, especially as the map itself, especially at 1.1, is somewhat stamina draining.
Yeah, you're capping out some of these streams at about, doing the math here, maybe like 270 BPM for little short spurts before going back down to that like 135, 137 rather, as we continue on. Then we still have this outro. It's those trills I would love to highlight. They do get compressed there at the end. They're not just straightforward 1/4s. They choke up a little bit. So being able to handle those quick speed changes in this section could be the difference here if you can hold the composure, able to hold the FC, or just being able to not avoid, or being able to avoid dropping large amounts of accuracy on this outro.
Yeah, this ending is definitely an ending of endings.
Mhm.
To end people's destiny. That is.
Alrighty, but that will do it for Rice 4. We can move on to Rice 5. Almost done with the Rice pool
Wait,
overall here.
I kind of just realized that I think this one was also in MBS. Oh
Oh
God.
boy.
You might tell me.
Oh yeah.
Just tell me.
Yes, this was.
It was. I think it was. Yeah.
It was the you had the wonderful idea of having two tiebreakers. I think this was one of the tiebreakers. For if it was a Rice oriented match or an LN oriented match, this was the Rice tiebreaker.
No, this one it wasn't the tiebreaker. I think it was a regular technical pick. I mean, it is 2 minutes and 21 seconds long, so.
Oh, yeah. I am, as the kids say, making things up
Yes,
as we get into
indeed.
this.
Yeah, like look at the OD, however, like it is nothing to scoff at, and like the BPM goes back and forth a lot, and combined with OD 8.9, this is a nightmare to hack, actually.
For sure. So, something for the sharpshooters among us to kind of latch onto potentially. There are, I mean, true to form, this is another bit of an interpretive style chart. There is a lot of like drum fills going on that you can one to, but the patterning isn't the most straightforward. You're having to do like two-handed things, one-handed things off the back, some mini jacks thrown in for good measure, and overall just a very nice mixed Rice style of chart to continue on with the overall theming of this pool. Add some nice variety.
Yeah, like for variety's sake, this is most likely gonna be the most mini jack oriented Rice in the pool. And yeah, I think by far this is gonna be the most mini jack oriented Rise of the pool, and people who want to make people trip up on those mini jacks are definitely gonna be looking into either picking this one or outright protecting this one.
Yeah, if you had fun with Libertas this weekend, this might be something to look into where you can really just kind of hunker down on that style of play. And with that increased OD, you can kind of just push the envelope a little bit. Just really demand that your opponent is not like futzing around with the overall patterning, because you will get punished in comparison to something like Vizcrack, where it's like 7.5 to this 8.9. You will feel it. Don't be surprised if your score is a little bit lower than you're used to when practicing this.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that ending as well. Like the snaps were all over the place, and that at OD 8.9, like how?
Yeah, you can't like double stop that. You have to flam it. If not, you're going to find those 200s. And I mean, with the way things have been going in this tournament, like some of these matches have been really cutthroat inside 1,000 points at times. And I wouldn't want to be on the losing end of a 200 there at the end. So we can move on to our next rice pick.
And this is a classic. We brought back the classics all the way up to, I think this was 2016 or 2017, right from Saravia. So this is going to be our first core jack pick of the entire tournament. And we are introducing core jacks, in fact, like straightforward core jacks in quarterfinals. So to start with, this is going to be 112 BPM, but this is fairly dense, all things considered.
Mhm. I mean, we had Grin last weekend. I mean, I think some players might say that that was a bit of a core jack pick, a bit higher BPM, but a little lighter in terms of overall strain. This one, once you get started with these core jack patterns, all the 3 note chords that you have to coordinate inside of all the doubles can be a bit much to play through. But 112 is maybe a good little bit of an olive branch to extend where it's a BPM where some players might be at their floor, others might be at their ceiling already here.
Yeah, the thing with BPM in terms of chord jacks is that you either nail it completely, like you get really high accuracy. Oh my god, those anchors are really treacherous, by the way.
Mhm.
Either you really nail it with high accuracy, or you're prone to miss it, to miss a lot, and tank your score down to like, I don't know, 970k, 960k, or even lower.
Yeah, it's gonna be really funny seeing somebody get like a double digit 300 count with a singular miss. That is textbook chord jack score lines. And with the way, again, players have been playing, everybody seems to be attuned to playing chord jack at this level. So 15 300s, maybe nobody will beat that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a 998 somewhere. 997, maybe.
Yeah, I do think that like some people in this tournament are able to get a 998 or even a 999, but it remains to be seen next
Yeah.
week. And yeah, we do have an extra rise this time around, and this extra rise is gonna be what we call the boss pick. So that is a pick that is a lot longer than the usual rise pick, and that is almost like tiebreaker. I want to say tiebreaker length.
Mhm.
And this song is so good, by the way.
Alrighty, so getting on into it, 5 minutes. You guys are absolutely insane.
Yep, this is a regular pick. This is not a tiebreaker. This is, in fact, Rice number 7, which is quote unquote the stamina pick. And it's more than just physical stamina, it is also mental stamina because this map is fairly technical, all things considered. Like, it is lighter in terms of technicality than Loretta, and less intense because it does have its quiet moments, like here, for example. But you have to read all the way through because it is very Gracie in nature.
Okay, you don't have the benefit of a lower OD to kind of get away with some of those grace note patterns. And this one's going to be interesting to see what the reception is to it. Because in my experience, and I think you can attest to it, we get to these longer picks, and after a certain point, players will start to ban things out just by length alone. They don't even care what's in it. Even if it's the easiest map, if it's like a second too long, they just won't sit through it. So this will be interesting. The patterning has its moments where you have like one hand trills going into the two hand trills, some staircase rolls here and there on that like 1/6 nap range, but do get plenty of downtime to kind of recover from those strenuous moments.
Yeah, like You say downtime, but like the downtime might actually be the hardest parts of the map because you still have to focus on the accuracy overall. Like this is light enough that people will go for accuracy on really tight matchups. Like this might not be a protect or a first pick for a lot of people. This might come later in the match, and later in the match is when this type of pick is going to be really stressful. And oh, the density just amps up here in this bridge in particular.
Yeah, you get into this little Korjak-esque motif with the transitional bursts in between. Those quads do get intrusive after a while. Just avoiding bottoming out the key is going to be very important when you're transitioning through those moments. And then we have a bit of a reprise of that light two-hand into one-hand trill. Not 1/4, I am noticing. It does undulate here and there, going into the 1/6, maybe brushing up against the 1/8 snaps. So definitely watch out. Don't take them too slow. Don't rush them too aggressively, lest you find yourself dropping 200s or in worst cases even just fumbling the entire trill section as a whole.
Yeah, also one thing to mention as well is that this map is actually ranked, and this is kind of a surprising find from the ranked section. Like, this is very atypical of a map to find in the ranked section. Like, this... I don't know how Logan found this, but absolutely tremendous find.
Absolutely. So far, I mean, it's a very enjoyable song. Might not be to everybody's taste. People like the high octane, typical, like fast-paced type of charts. But if you're more of like that down tempo, more pop-oriented mindset, just going into this just because of being able to settle into that groove and being able to weather the pattern structures that will be testing you, then I mean, go for it. This is very I say this coming from having to play Send My Love to Mars and just absolutely beefing it last weekend. This is a very welcome change. It's not just another pure jump stream pick.
Yeah, I do think like some people might take advantage of the added technicality of the rice pool. Like there's a fair amount of rice picks that are fairly technical in nature, and I do think like the technical picks do outnumber the more straightforward picks, but I think there's a value to every single rice pick. Like all 7 rice picks are very defined in their features.
Yeah, very little overlap, and the fact that we're getting like those dedicated-esque picks where it's like we have the rice 1 that you can latch onto if you want just jump stream. If you want Korjak, when we're finally getting into it officially, you go for rice 6, and then you have these variety-esque picks that don't really fall into one like checkbox, so to say. They just all kind of complement each other very nicely. So that'll be interesting to see what players opt to go for, what the most popular pick in this rice pool is going to be. And that will do it for that rice pool. 7 rice maps up. Gotta go into the bottom half now. Bring out the LNs.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I'm gonna drink every time someone misses the last 4 notes of rice 7, but let's go into LN. This is also a classic, by the way. Like this one, some people might not actually know it, and that's from Percy Kaz, and that's actually pretty a pretty dated LN release pick, and we are actually going into actual release maps here. And this one is fairly straightforwardly snapped, but the staggers kind of go left and right here. Like you can see like the tail ends never really end where another note is starting, and that really trips some people up. Like here you can see enter replace, some many 200s are dropped on LN tails that do not really land anywhere, and that can be really unsettling for some people.
Yeah, if you're one of those that isn't used to seeing 200s flashing up all over the place, this is definitely a bit of nightmare fuel. definitely gotta trust yourself when to release. As you mentioned, very differing starts and stops to those tails. But there are some segments where you have like an anchored ending where you're ending a tail on a note to kind of stick a landing. But as we continue on, definitely has way more in terms of that release element in an LN chart that we haven't seen in rounds prior. So
Yeah, quite interesting to see in an LN1 pick. Like previous LN1 picks were fairly coordination, like consistency heavy, but this one really goes balls to the wall in terms of really amping up the release and coordination difficulty altogether. Like you can see, the releases are not the only feature of this map. You also get many shields and almost cord jack like, I guess, a rise into LN coordination, and that is almost reminiscent of how timing hells are structured.
yeah, it's just mercifully those little chord jack-esque transitions don't have like short staccato LNs on them as well. So if you are going to be finding yourself rushing into these LN sections, you're not like tanking double the amount of bad judgments through them. And overall, this is definitely in that area where the BPM is low enough and the amount of release technicality along with the coordination elements found throughout is low enough to give some players trouble because, in my experience, higher BPM release oriented charts like this tend to favor, or players tend to gravitate towards these style of charts when the BPM is higher. So starting at 110 BPM, you really need to focus on those release elements. You have so much more time to kind of overthink when you're supposed to let go here.
Yeah, honestly, really interesting to see how the LN1 slot in particular is evolving. And let's see how the LN2 slot is evolving. This is another classic, by the way. This is one of the old school style Reveal maps. It's gonna be Joachim Made at Sanbyo.
And I
And
imagine this is going to be more density oriented if I were to hazard a guess.
yeah, like this is both somewhat quote unquote jump stream slash density oriented, but also kind of coordination demanding because it is not that high BPM. It's like 182 BPM, but does have a lot of kind of staggery elements that make this not really straightforward in terms of coordination, kind of like Overdriver's was.
Already seeing much faster LN buildups where you just have a massive wall to read through with some implied one-hand shenanigans from what I saw in the buildup going into this KI section does quiet down a little bit. First introduction to small bits of full inverse. We really want to call it inverse. Just you're holding out 4 notes. You have a couple of releases in there, and oh boy.
Yeah, honestly, this is a decent. I think this is a decent like step up from the previous rounds. Like I feel like now that we have eliminated a fair amount of people in round of 16, we can really, I think, propose some quote unquote actual LN maps in this, starting from quarterfinals.
Yeah, people always make the arguments if the LN charts aren't hard enough that it's like, oh, this is just a hybrid. An LN leaning hybrid, but this is definitely a bit of a step up. Like, Foolish Hero was kind of maybe the last, like, kid glove style of LN2 chart, and I say that with the biggest of asterisks, because going from soft 2 into this and saying that that's kid gloves is a bit of a bold statement now that I think about it, but this is definitely a massive step up in comparison to what we did last weekend. So it'll be interesting to see who gravitates towards this. I can imagine this catching a lot of protects. I can also see it catching a lot of bans as well.
Yeah, I actually don't know where the bands are gonna end up because LN3 is also definitely a step up in another direction.
Oh boy. Without further ado. Oh, okay. I can see why now.
So this is gonna be Demi-Fiend's Temptation, and Demi-Fiend's Temptation is a fair amount technical and also really, really hard to hack. What did I do in this intro? Like, this is 2023 me. I do not remember what I did in this intro, but I really messed it up.
We get a glimpse back into the past, and we saw a tiny glimpse of that inverse patterning in LN2. Now you get a full wall of it to sink your teeth into in this one. And I mean, with M2U, this is definitely an artist where you kind of expect LN charts like Mare Maris being like the most popular example I can think of off the top of my head, but there are so many LN charts based off this artist, and this just adding to that catalog just flows so nicely.
Yeah, it flows so nicely, but it's broken up by many, many graces. Like, the graces kind of break your flow in trying to get the LN coordination, and this is why this is so technical as an LN pick.
And they kind of just sneak up on you too. It's very much, I think, the tendency for players that maybe don't have the strongest LN fundamentals is to just like crush both notes at the same time and just kind of tank the 200 or even 100 in worst case scenarios in those sections, because trying to coordinate everything else around it can be a bit too much to ask for. But you get these long sections where you can kind of settle in a little bit. It dies down, but it does pick up. It doesn't really give you much of a break to catch your breath. There's always something happening at all times as we get into this outro.
Yeah, this outro is definitely more coordination heavy than the rest of the map, especially like since the triples and almost inverse patterns extend, and being 1/3, it is definitely slower than the rest of the map. And we say it again and again: the slower the map goes, the more coordination heavy it is in the lens.
So a very nice change of pace. And as you mentioned, we are adding another LN chart. So LN4 before too long.
Yeah, this one is going to be fairly fast-paced. This is the fastest LN of them all, and it does have some tiny, I guess, rice elements to it, but the rice elements are really easy. Like, I wouldn't call it like density oriented really, but this is more of a kind of speed-ish LN pick. Like, it is fast coordination. I want to describe it as fast coordination.
Yeah, we get this introduction, the build up, get the long anchors with the 3-note bursts in between. Makes a reprise. You had it on the outer columns, now you get it on the inner columns, kind of just carrying on that motif as we build in here. And I want to say I recognize this from a tournament a couple of years ago, used as maybe a qualifier. I mean, stage 5 tells you that it was more than likely used or created to be intended as a qualifier. So seeing it here in quarterfinals, not the most surprising, definitely has that billing. And as you mentioned, you do get these little moments of rice buildup, but very straightforward jump stream, doesn't really detract too much from everything else going on. Yeah, just adds a little bit of variety.
Yeah, some people might get tripped up on the mini jacks, but I felt like the mini jacks were almost inconsequential. Like, they flowed really well with like the rest of the map and didn't hamper on like the also the LN coordination that was involved.
Yeah, so we get into the last drop here, last quarter of the map left to go. We see a bit more of what we have been seeing already, just these anchored LNs kind of exemplifying your downbeat as you start doing things around it. And again, just being able to coordinate these little intricacies in between and the transitional moments. I think I'll say that a lot more often in the hybrids once we get to the hybrids, but this is definitely the most wild card, I think is a good moniker to give it. Type of LN pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Although you might say that all of the like especially like LN2, LN3, and LN4 are all kind of wild cards in their own
Mhm.
ways. But I do feel like they are unique enough that they do not like overlap each
Overlap.
other.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I always give those categories with like a tiny bit of an asterisk because I think so far the players can expect that it's like we're not at least I imagine the headspace is not trying to check boxes off like okay, category here, category here. It's just how do all these maps mesh against each other to make these pools overall. So yeah, we can move on.
yeah. Speaking of categories, we are moving on to Hybrid One. And this one is definitely special. This is 205 BPM, if I'm reading correctly. I
Yes.
I'm not sure. Um, and 205 BPM might be a good thing to remember because you are going to see some things that might not be very pleasant to the eye nor to the fingers. And those are 205 BPM mini jacks.
Oh boy. Alrighty. So I
Here,
guess we'll
there's
buckle in.
one.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
And the coordination here at 205 BPM is like not straightforward to get either. And, like the transitions into those mini jacks is like not straightforward at all. Like I found these to be kind of awkward to take. Like you kind of go into one another and you kind of have to switch back and forth between coordination mode and mini jack mode, which is really I guess really awkward to in your brain and in your fingers as well.
Yeah, the fact that they're all like one hand mini jack patterns or the swings where you start galloping like from column 3 to column 4 is probably going to maybe lead some players to opt for like mirror depending on which hand is more dominant, which one they feel more comfortable getting down quicker. So adds a little bit more variety, and as we continue on here, a lot more implied mini jacks going into some of those chord transitions. You start those streams and end with like a 3-note chord on the same hand, and a nice little balance between these harder rice elements and the LN sections as well.
Yeah, it's not. It's honestly a pretty interesting pick to put in a 3 hybrid roster, because like this one is really particular to describe. It's like not really that physical, but the 205 BPM mini jacks do require some physicality, but overall it's like very coordination demanding, especially.
For sure. And that one's over and done with. We can move on to Hybrid 2.
And hybrid 2 is going to be a little bit more Ellen oriented. And this one is a really old map. This might be the oldest map we have put in this entire tournament. I think there's like 1 digit less in the beat map set ID entirely. This comes from like 2015, I want to say.
You guys haven't really been ones to shy away from adding some really old school charts to these map pools, and as you mentioned, just more LN oriented. We can see some of those light coordination going into some heavy release elements as well.
Yeah, this one is fairly LN oriented, but does have some kind of nollie bursts here and there, and some rice pots that are not that straightforward. Like this one, definitely very trilly patterning, especially for the time, and some mini jacks in there for transitioning.
Yeah, back then ergonomics weren't really the most appreciated thing. If it sounded like it needed a mini jack, it got a mini jack.
And
Oh
an SV
god.
for transitioning into the main KI. And like the main KI is also very like LN oriented, of course.
very textbook 2010s style mapping, just all the classics. And we're not even in Hybrid 3 yet. I think people have kind of categorized Hybrid 3 as the one that has the funny SV gimmicks, but I mean, thankfully, it went by so quickly. I didn't even notice it until you pointed it out.
Yeah, you also see some of those split jump trail patterning, and those also affect the rice elements of this map in particular. If you're especially like bad on the split trails, do consider maybe banning this one.
And now we've got Hybrid 3 here.
And this one is less old, but it's kind of a low-key classic. And,
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah, like I do have a Score V1 score in the leaderboard here. That score, I think, comes from 2019. And I do think that this map comes from either 2018 or 2019.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of an older one. Might be. I definitely remember this being like one of the first maps I remember playing when I first started playing Mania back in like 2020, 2019.
Yeah, and that's also the valid proposition we have considering some of the picks. Like some of the picks might outright be like the very first maps that we have played on this game, like starting out. Like I definitely downloaded this map because I felt like the song choice was really compelling, and like the rank set also had some easier difficulties that kind of served to build up some sense of progression in this game. But speaking of sense of progression, discovering SVs this way on this map, and there goes especially very abrasive pattern, like the mini jacks and the trills and so on, really kind of makes you doubt on the star rating of this map. Like 3.51 is definitely not the star rating that it should have. Is definitely like one of the first reaction you might have while playing this map for the first time in 2019.
Oh, for sure. I mean, to be fair, this is a 3.51. Doesn't play like a 3.51. I've gotten yelled at on my ranks at a Little Night. It's a like 2.1 star, and people tell me it's like, why is this so much harder than the star rating says? So yeah, this one definitely will pack a bit of a punch if you're going to sight read this, but thankfully it doesn't last for that long. The outro would be very funny to see people miss those last couple of notes, but I imagine after everything they've gone through, don't take your hands off the keyboard.
Yeah, like there's ample time before after the break, and then just leaves you time to notice that no, the map has in fact not ended.
Mhm. But that will do it for the map pool overall. That is all the normal picks. All that's left is the tiebreaker.
And the tiebreaker is gonna be Eureka, and that is gonna be a map coming from Irone from Hong Kong. And I don't really have much to say about this map because I have actually not seen it. I've never seen it before.
I mean, it's got a leaderboard on it, so able to make it to the rank section, and we can already see the prototypical tiebreaker-esque type things that we've come to know and love, where we have these like rice transitions into these LNs to kind of get people into the chart, cross that 400 combo cap, and kind of take things from there.
Yeah, like any tiebreaker, is going to be interesting to see how people like kind of decide, like break the tie on this particular pick, because like it is 200 BPM, so the mini jacks are also going to be 200 BPM, and some of the regular non-tiebreaker picks did feature some like even 205 BPM mini jacks. and then like some we are really starting to see some mini jack centric picks, and starting from 200 BPM, it really is starting to get difficult to manage.
For sure, and this one definitely doesn't pull any punches as well. Some very heavy, aggressively snapped LN bursts going into these Rice transitions, some awkward release timing, some awkward LN starts as well, some shields, some reverse shields thrown in for good measure, just to make sure that you're not bottoming out the key. And we get a tiny bit of a reprieve going into the second third of the map. Now we can see these long LN anchors where you're having to do stuff all around, beginning to build up once again. The transitional moment is going to be key to ensuring that you stay ahead if you do manage to eke out a bit of an advantage here. But
yeah, the BPM change here is pretty abrupt, so you really have to not be taken off guard here going into like the LN coordination. Like, make sure to not rush those patterns if you go into the section. And those quad streams are kind of brutal to put in this section.
yeah, just a heavy breakdown. Thankfully, one-to-one comparisons on what's going on musically, so you're not kind of left to fend for yourself. And we get into a bit more of a dedicated LN section where we see that reprise of those staggered starts and broken tail ends before going back into this bit of a build-up and a BPM increase to top things all off.
Yeah, some jump streams as a break, but here it is less of a break with the very abrasive mini jack into grace transitions. And oh my god, this patterning is kind of disgusting, if I may say so myself.
Hey, we gotta transition people to what to expect in the late game. Like that style of tech in the Rice where you're just having to basically hit so many grace notes in a row. You get the implied mini jacks, as you mentioned, littered throughout. That's just a hallmark of like late game Rice. So if you can manage to make it through that section unscathed, get into this bit more of an LN section, you probably have a lead at this point. And as we continue on, again, a tiny bit of a break, some downtime before we begin to build right back up. And that is a very broken jump stream transition, crushing the snap count back into an LN section. Last quarter of the map still coming through here. Already over 4,000 combo at this point.
Yeah, like any usual Ki, it goes into a really heavy LN section, almost LN density here, but here it is pretty coordination heavy. And this map, this tiebreaker in particular, has been pretty LN coordination heavy, so it might benefit some people to try and get some people to combo break into those LN coordination heavy sections.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the name of the game is just going to be transitions. Some core jack impacts before you get these bursts into some jump stream, into this 1/8 stream, back into some more release-oriented LNs. All of these free hanging as we make our way to this outro. And I mean, honestly, if you're able to make it through this with a full combo, congratulations. You have probably won the match. But also at the same time, how did you get here in the first place?
Yeah, no, like this is definitely, this doesn't look full. This doesn't look like something that 5 pitches should be able to full combo. Like,
someone's gonna do it.
Yeah, someone's gonna.
You said that now.
Yeah, someone's gonna do it and get skill banned. By the way,
just instantly removed from the tournament. This is the checkpoint, so to speak. But with all jokes aside, that will do it for the quarterfinals Mappool showcase. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the selection that the Mappool team has put together. And I mean, I know I myself am looking forward to this next weekend. Things starting to approach that mid to late game. We're going to see a lot of players begin to hit their ceilings. But once you hit that ceiling, that's when we really start to see players begin to overperform, see what they are truly made of. So last orders of business before we close things out. A reminder, if you are in the losers bracket, you still have your conditional match. A lot of you guys did a really good job of ensuring that any conditional matches that needed to like have that like last second reschedule, notified the right people, got most of the matches played. I know some extenuating circumstances, unavoidable at the end of the day, but overall, schedules will be coming out soon. Mappool will be coming out soon as well in the Discord, so definitely keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions regarding time, please hash it out with your opponent. Let the staff know. I say us because I'm the commentator, but let them know if the time doesn't work, if you can't get a hold of your opponent, especially the conditional ones. Remember, it's 2 people you need to contact just in case to ensure that you have the times down pat. Let either a host know or just let somebody know so that we can begin working things out, because we want, especially as we get into this late game, the players that deserve to make it to semifinals and beyond make it there. But with that being said, that will do it for us here. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and a equally as fantastic week. And we'll catch you guys later.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.